welcome to another edition of the Walpole Business Spotlight Show. My name is Harry Brusades, and I'm the host, and I'm also the president of the Walpole Chamber of Commerce. And the show is brought to you through the efforts of the Chamber of Commerce and Walpole Community Television. Today I have a special show, and it's about advocating for the individuals that are running for selectmen in the upcoming election for 2017. Election date is June 3rd?
June 3rd.
June 3rd.
Saturday.
And my two guests today are Mark Gallivan.
Welcome.
Mark,
Thank you.
Very nice to be here. And Cliff Snuffer. And Mark has been a selectman for how long?
6 years.
Currently.
Yep.
And Cliff, how long were you a selectman for?
2 3-year terms.
2 3-year terms. Now, you're running for the 2-year seat?
For the unexpired term of Jim Stanton,
Okay.
2 years.
And Mark, you're running for re-election, so that's
Yes,
a 3-year
term.
seat.
Yep.
Okay. So if we could, let's go right into a little bit more about who you guys are, so the general public can get to know you guys better. We'll start with Mark. Mark, tell me how long you've been in Walpole?
We've been here for over 20 years. And,
Where were you originally from?
I originally grew up in Dedham,
Oh, okay, me too.
but then I lived in the Seattle area and I lived in the Washington, D.C. area.
Okay.
But came back to start a family, and we looked all around the Boston area and chose Walpole. We have relatives in Walpole and a lot of friends in the area. So
What part of Dedham did you grow up?
I grew up in Green Lodge.
Oh, okay. I was in
Yeah.
Oakdale.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen a lot of people, my age group from Dedham come out this way,
Oh, yeah.
settle in Norwood and Walpole and Foxborough. And
We call that moving up.
Okay. And Cliff, how long have you been in Walpole?
40 years.
Wow.
Yep, a little over 40 years. Just in case you've been wondering, I was born on the winter solstice, December 21st, 1941. I am 75 years young.
Very nice. And did I see that, is your wife since passed?
My beautiful, loving wife passed away 7 years ago,
Sorry to hear that.
and she's missed every day by family and friends.
Sorry about that. And children?
I have 5 adult children, and they're beautiful significant others. I have 10 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren.
Excellent.
It's a prolific family.
Very nice. So, Mark, are you now retired from private sector, or are you still working in business?
I still do a little consulting, but I sold my business a while back, and focus a lot of energy on being a selectman and various volunteer work with Walpole Youth Soccer. And we're right now in the middle of robot season at the high school, so the team has been competing around New England and just earned a chance to go to the World Championship in St. Louis. So that takes up a lot of time, for January through April. So.
And that business background was in IT?
Yeah, it was
technology?
an IT consulting business, and we had about 150 plus employees, did work in the DC, Boston, Chicago, Detroit markets, generally for large companies, but also the federal government and some mid-sized businesses. So pretty good business.
Very nice. And Cliff, what was your profession before?
I'm a retired business executive. I was the managing partner of Selmark Associates. We were the largest manufacturer's representative in New England for electronics and electromechanical products. And I was also the president of the New England Electronic Representatives Association, which is a 200-member firm. And I retired 7 years ago. I'm sorry, 11 years ago. Time flies.
Excellent. So, as far as politics go, Cliff, why
Yep.
did you get into politics in Walpole, and why?
It's rather interesting from the perspective that I moved out here as I say, 40 plus years ago. And I was on Oak Street in my little abode where my son lives now. And about 4 days into my getting comfortable in the town of Walpole, I discovered that there was a builder trying to put 780 units of low-income housing at the end of Oak Street, which is now the Audubon Drive area. Mm-hmm. And I said, this doesn't sound right. I just left the city for the suburbs. I was living in South Boston at the time. And I started to get involved in fighting that, and was very successful in doing so. And essentially, I've been championing one cause after another for the last 40 years.
Very nice. And with your children, do any still live in Walpole, reside in Walpole?
Yes, my son Cliff lives in my old home on Oak Street.
Okay.
My daughter Michelle lives on Hummingbird Lane. My daughter Susan lives on Hummingbird Lane. Both houses built by my son-in-law, a little plug for Jerry. And Stephen lives in Norfolk, and my daughter Karen lives in Miami.
All right. And before I get to you, Mark, your kids are just a little younger, right?
Yes,
Not homeowners yet. But that's just a good point where I think another reason why you might be running as far as to forward the town for its best interests is because you've got children in town.
Well, absolutely. Anything and everything I do has been for the people of Walpole. As a matter of fact, my wife, when I first ran, insisted that based on the number of years that I had been an advocate for the people of Walpole, that I put on my signs for the people. And that is what I did at her request.
Very nice. All right. So, Mark, what got you into town government and why?
I think it started with schools. As my kids were starting to go through the schools, as a IT professional and consultant, one of the things I noticed is that there were very few computers. So I got involved with the Walpole Computer Foundation, doing fundraising to put computers in the schools. And that got me interested in the school buildings being many inadequate for computer labs and those kind of things. So I get interested in seeing Walpole continue to upgrade its schools. As I say, every 50 years or so you ought to build a new building like a fire station, a police station, a council, or a school. And Walpole seems to get in a rut sometimes, and too much time passes before they do anything. So I started originally on the Walpole Information Systems Committee, which was sort of the town's IT committee. Then went to Finance Committee for 6 years to understand the budget and how do we get our money as a town? Where does it go? How do we do things? How do we bond? And then to the Board of Selectmen, which is more of a policy setting board to help make sure we're doing things that help all the citizens of town, the kids, the taxpayers, and the seniors.
Absolutely. And I think when my first daughter started in the school system, it was around 2000. I moved in 99.
Yep.
And all the kindergarten kids were going to be put in the Elm Street gym with partition walls.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, and I ran my kid to St. Catherine's and put him in that school. So I don't know if that was the time of Walpole was having some troubles in the school.
My son did 5th grade in the library at Fisher School because they were overcrowded in every classroom and that was an available space. So when it gets to that point, you realize you have to do something. So.
Do you know the history on that? On that school?
Fisher?
No.
Elm? No.
$1 million.
That sounds good.
Okay. And so it came with some hindrances.
Was it an existing building?
An existing building, yeah, built by one of the churches.
Oh, okay.
And for $1 million to handle the initial growth spurt of the town of Walpole, it was one good buy.
Sure. I've got some pushback when I've asked that question regarding why can't the town go buy this land or buy that building. What are the, impediments to something like that, or is there?
None that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay. All right. No, that's what I've heard. Not to say that.
Other than, if we have any deed restrictions or things of that nature.
Okay. I guess the reply I got was the town isn't in the business to own land or own up more property or something.
Interestingly enough, a few years ago, I did a study on the available plots of land that are owned by the town of Walpole, you remember?
Yep, I do.
And we came up with 17 or 20 of them. And the motivation was to perhaps be able to build on a volunteer basis homes for our injured veterans. And that was something that we still have the plans, but we haven't seemed to move it forward.
Okay. All right, so let's go into some fun stuff here. First off, one of the biggest things I like hearing about Walpole, and people say, well, Walpole is different. We're a different town. We don't do what everybody else does. So tell me a little bit what you think, what makes Walpole different than other towns?
People in the town of Walpole are very, very aware of what's going on and whether they like it or dislike it. In that comparison, Walpole politics is in many ways a blood sport. And I think you'll maybe see it come out sometime this election. People are very opinionated. Example, when I first came to Walpole, I had to fight the sludge dump. And I put in tens and tens of hours fighting that, including demonstrations in the State House and things of that nature. That was quickly followed by 585 megawatts of power plant. And that was followed by a regional trash transfer station. And now you're getting the picture of what has happened over the 40 years and why I'm still doing this, because it does need shepherding. And I like to think, and certainly Mark and I are of different political bent, but we probably work the best together of any pair that you'd ever want to see on a Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Mark, your opinion on why Walpole is different?
I'll come at it from a different point of view. You know, as soon as I moved to Walpole, I started getting involved with Walpole Youth Soccer as a coach, just because, you know, one of my kids was ready to play soccer and play, you know, Little League and all those kind of things. So I started meeting people through youth sports, soccer, basketball, baseball, Little League. And then through the connection I mentioned earlier with the lack of computers in the schools, the Walpole Computer Foundation, started meeting a lot of really interesting people that were very involved in the community. And I think one of the things that does set Walpole apart is the number of people who are willing to volunteer their time for others, not necessarily just to coach their kid, but to coach their kid and to help the other kids. And I think that's one of the great qualities of Walpole. And you know, we try to mention that at the Board of Selectmen when literally there are hundreds of volunteers on various boards and committees, giving their time freely to make Walpole better. And I think that's one of the great things about Walpole.
I would agree with that, absolutely. And that's a good plug for the Walpole Chamber, which is, we're all volunteers at the Chamber of Commerce, and we're also somewhat unique because we're one chamber, one town.
Yep.
And like when I go out and meet with other chambers, we had a multi-chamber event up at the Plain Ridge Casino the other night for the grand opening of the harness racing, which was fun. And I was telling a lot of the members, we get more people out to our events than those larger chambers that contain five or six towns, because we're all real close-knit. We want to take care and help each other, and it really provides, you know, the same aspect of the volunteering and how Walpole is different.
Good plug.
And thanks. So, you know, and another part, you know, like I know something that recently came through was the trash disposal issue, and you know, I got a flood of calls and emails about, I want it to remain the same. We're not changing Walpole. Do not bring us to where Norwood or Sharon or Dedham is. And, you know, it was interesting to get both sides of the story. And again, when it came through that Walpole remained the same, I was very surprised to hear people say, how could they do that? Why would they do that? And, you know, I don't think everybody had all the information that they needed to make that decision at that time. But again, just another little example of why Walpole's a little bit different. And just quickly on that, you know, we do have to come a lot further regarding educating our residents when it comes to recycling. We can do a much better job. I think it was like 18% they said of people that were recycling, and we could get closer to 30 if we just educate people, right?
Yeah, and again, I was the selectman who was for the new recycling plan. I think that, and Cliff was not, and one of the problems we had is, and we, the current selectmen talked about it, the next time it comes up for renewal, a year ahead, we need to start having these open forums and let people come in. But I thought it was time to move to a single stream. Yeah. And you know, my brethren on the Board of Selectmen weren't thinking that same way.
That's that gray line or divide with Walpole, I think, where, you know, I talked to, so when I get to this next piece of the agenda, which is downtown Walpole, and then you've heard me talk a lot about how we're trying to revitalize downtown Walpole and get it going again. But then there are many people in this town that want to keep it a sleepy downtown. And it's just a hard place to get to, you know? You got people that way or that way, so.
Can I jump in on the trash for a second?
Yeah.
One of the things that the people of the town of Walpole do not understand is that Russell, and I have high marks for Russell, they're excellent company, that they actually perform a single stream function. And that is kept us away from a trash fee for a very long period of time. For those, for example, I dabble a little in metals markets also, and some of us who deal in the metals markets clearly understand that aluminum is now the little secret king of trash. And it's something in the order of $1,600, $1,700 a ton. And now you're getting a tipping fee that you're going to have to pay to recycle. And in the single stream which they are performing, their speed record is 3 times that of lifting up, dumping in, putting down. And that's the part that has to be understood. So that part of it is why I didn't favor it.
Okay. So before I go into some questions that I might have in regard to issues, is there anything that you'd want to talk about that's top of mind that you think is going to be a debate issue and something that you want to get out?
I don't know if it's going to be a debate issue, but one of the things that I'm proud of, and Cliff and I work together, and one of the things people need to know is Cliff and I don't always agree on things, but
Recent
he must
example.
be, and as an example, just like it used to work in Congress. You had Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, or Tip O'Neill and somebody reaching across, finding common ground, and Cliff and I have been able to do that. And I'm very proud that we've been able to. We're starting construction on a new fire station. We're starting construction on a new police station. Design is finished for a new council on aging. It's going out to bid soon. Hopefully we'll be constructing that in a year without the need for an override. And again, I originally proposed the override. The voters, we heard them loud and clear and came back with another plan. And Jim Johnson and the finance team, I think, have done a great job digging in and finding ways to finance that over time to make it so that it's not an override. One of the campaign issues is, though, that many of the people on Finance Committee, and my particular opponent, as an example, was against the Council on Aging. And it's a pretty low-risk situation. Walpole is paying about 80% of the money needed to construct that. We've applied for a state grant, and there's private fundraising going on, just like the library. It's a similar circumstance. So I'm not sure why people didn't get on board with the seniors, and there's a lot of excuses out there. But that's a no-brainer from my point of view. The seniors need a place to go. It's a social services agency, really, is what it is, lining people up with services that they need and have to have.
Sure.
And I think that's going to be a debate issue at some point.
You and I just talked a little bit about that briefly, and we have what, 6,000 seniors in Walpole?
In that neighborhood, yep, growing fast.
Yeah, and we have zero space for them. I don't even want to call the space that we have for them a space.
The old cafeteria is not really a space.
And whether it's talking about protecting our children or taking care of our seniors, I think we should be huge advocates for those people. And then again, when it comes to the size of that building or whatever, even if they do overbuild it, that'll be additional space where people can use. Even if they don't want to go upstairs, we can have meetings there, right?
Well,
we can rent it out.
The whole idea of that building was, the seniors are primarily in the building from early in the day, 7 o'clock till 4:35, especially in the winter. And the building will be available to all the other groups. You try to book a meeting into the library on a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, a Thursday night, it's impossible.
Exactly.
So this can be used by the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever groups want to use the building and need a good meeting space. So,
If I may, I'm very proud of the work that Mark and I did on all the facilities, not the least of which is recently the DPW maintenance facility. And spoke very favorably, did a lot of work. But there's a very interesting thing that takes place, and very few people understand it. When you build something without an override, you have to pay attention to your levy limit. And what's fascinating about the town of Walpole, its levy limit is something in the order of $200 million. That means you can borrow up to, try and do it, but you can borrow up to. And the other aspect is when you do it without an override, what happens? That vote then goes to the town meeting. The town meeting is 150 representatives from 8 precincts, and all you need in many ways is a simple majority in some of these things. And the voter never gets a say. The voter has to depend
Other than that, they put those people in there
on the representative town meeting that they choose, member that they choose. And that's why in elections such as the one that we have coming up, pay very careful attention to who's on that ballot.
And right now, did I hear that our debt is around 80 million, give or take? Is that right? Sound right?
You're probably talking about the budget.
Oh, okay.
The budget's in that range. Yeah.
Okay. And so, the new upcoming budget is going to be about 100 million. correct?
Not for what we call the
Not for the core budget,
Not for
no.
the core budget.
Okay.
No.
Again, I'm more of the common man surface
Yeah.
type of information.
Yeah,
that
no, and one of my opponent also voted no for the senior center, and thankfully voted yes for Siemens. The reality is that the opponent that Mark is talking about actually beats the living hell out of the budget in plain English when it comes to the sewer and water group, and Mark will at some point talk about that.
Okay. All right, let's go to hopefully some quick replies on the schools. So we got
Speed
some,
round?
Yes, we've got some things coming up there. I guess regarding the full day kindergarten question in Walpole. Number one, most other towns have full day school now, I guess, and that is paid by the town.
Yep.
Correct. Right now in Walpole, it's free half day, and I think if you want to do full day, you have to pay.
Yep.
All right. So we're asking the town to pay for the half day portion for our citizens.
Yep.
Correct. And I guess that funding is going to come from the town itself and not the school budget. Is that correct?
I'm in favor of full free kindergarten tuition. I mean, full kindergarten unpaid. I think we have to work into it. The problem is we don't have $800,000 in the budget that's available. So there was money put in this year's budget to sort of think of it as a starting payment to get it going.
I saw that,
$75,000, $80,000.
yeah,
Well,
okay.
again, I don't know the final number, but and then we'll work toward that. As an example, OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits, which is something the state is taking a look at, which are monies that we need to pay out to retirees over time in the future. A few years ago, none of the towns kept any money like that, and we started small and built up. So now we're putting a significant amount of money into OPEB every year for future payments to current employees. And I think K tuition is the same way. I think we can work into it over the next couple of years and make that a win for everybody.
Okay. How about when it comes to the question on a new high school and combining the two middle schools?
The starting point was what is referred to as a statement of interest, an SOI. And I spoke very favorably of having that particular statement of interest go forward to the SBAB for their cursory glance at what can happen. I'm an absolute staunch believer that a facility properly designed can truly be an incubator of new thought. And I also believe that within that guideline, that a facility can enhance the learning experience for what they refer to today as the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And the reality of that comes down to the following. What are the next generations, the next 25 to 50 years, going to be looking like? And all you have to do is look at my 3 little great-grandchildren who take their phones at 3 and 4 years old and start manipulating them, and I still have a Dora the Explorer model.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to the money, that's where the rubber and the road meet, and that's where the tough decisions are going to be made.
And let me jump in real quick. I mean, I sort of led into it earlier. Every 50 years we need to build a new building, and Walpole has a history of not building buildings and then they stack up and you need a lot at the same time. So, you know, we've dealt with police, fire, council on aging, the DPW garage. We do now need to turn to a solution for the middle school, high school.
Sure.
You know, they've done well doing some renovations to those buildings, roofs, windows, doors, but it's time to take a big step forward.
Yeah, it's frankly, it's necessary money that has to be spent to fix them, but it's wasted from a budgetary perspective, a pragmatic approach. It's wasted.
So I guess my opinion or thought is that, all right, we are addressing police, fire, and seniors. And I think we have now 2 or 3 new agendas. One is the school systems, and my part of advocating through the Walpole Chamber is downtown Walpole and the commercial side of Walpole. That being said, building the commercial side of Walpole will increase tax revenue and potentially give us more dollars to spend on some of these things moving forward versus another override or higher taxes, whether it be through real estate or whatever other taxes we have to pay. What are your thoughts on the taxes that are continually increasing within this town, whether it be real estate taxes or the potential of another override?
I think that when you look at taxes, the state set it up so that you can increase your budget 2.5% maximum each year, unless there's new buildings or an override. And if you think about what people get paid, you have to give them raises to keep them. We're competing locally with all the other towns to keep our employees. So there's some amount of money, 2.5% to be exact, that you need to increase every year to keep up with what all the other towns are doing, keep great employees, and keep the town, the schools, police, fire moving forward. I do think that new expansion of the commercial base is great. One of Walpole's problems is we're hamstrung by what happened in the 50s and 60s when Walpole Mall was created. If you look at Route 1 in most places, 500 yards in each direction is commercial. There's office buildings, there's car dealerships, there's malls, and in Walpole, when they built the Walpole Mall, they made a decision for whatever reason that across the street, they were going to let people build literally, within whatever it is, 100 feet of the highway.
Sure.
So we did restrict way back when a lot of the land that could have been used for commercial.
Right.
So we're very limited compared to a lot of the other towns. But I think that's one of the important reasons that we tried to keep Siemens. We want them to expand, spend hundreds of millions of dollars. That has a ripple effect to the small businesses. I try to look across the whole town, downtown, East Walpole, the Route 1 corridor. I mean, one of the things we did last year is got additional liquor licenses. We heard from economic development that that is something that spurs drawing people into the downtown or Route 1 or wherever they happen to be.
Absolutely.
And we did that, and we got those licenses. Some of them are sort of earmarked for development in specific places.
Yep.
As an example, over by the train station, some of the new
they're-
buildings.
And they're pretty much in need of revitalization all by itself.
So again, Walpole being a little different, I think another aspect of that is, you've got precinct 6, 7, 8 or whatever, North Walpole, that are high income earners. And then you gravitate more towards the center of town, and you've got middle income, and then even more towards South Walpole and East Walpole. And some of them are lower middle income, as well as our seniors. At some point, I think we have to curb that cost structure when it comes to taxes, because we need to keep these people in town.
Well, but that happens automatically. Property is reassessed every couple of years, as an example. So as the high-end homes increase in value more faster than the smaller homes or the mid-sized homes, more of the tax burden is on the larger homes than on the smaller homes. So
Sure.
the beauty of that is that does happen automatically. Now, sometimes the market is not for the high homes, but it's for a starting family that wants the small cape, so they're moving to certain neighborhoods. So sometimes those neighborhoods increase faster than others. But in general, if the higher value areas are increasing faster than the smaller to medium-sized homes, that sort of self-selects.
Do you know why that happens? In 1950s, Walpole was the third largest industrial town in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I can imagine.
And where Kendall is, where Hollingsworth and Vose is, where Fales is, they all lived within walking distance of how to get there.
Yep.
And the rest of the place was farmland.
I know.
And so that natural migration took
All right,
place.
so I think we're at 28 minutes. We got to wrap up real quick, because this thing went great and fast. Quickly, tell us why Mark Gallivan for re-election?
I would just say I tend to look at all of Walpole. So I'm interested in what's happening with the kids. I'm interested in what's happening with the taxpayers, and I'm interested in what's happening with the seniors. So that's what I tend to focus on. I'm for things. I'm for doing things that help those people. I'm not against things. I'm an optimist. So that's what people should know about me. Kids, taxpayers, seniors.
Very good. Sir?
I'm a worker, I'm a thinker, and I'm a doer. And all of those, when I found, I don't know if you know my background, but I was decades on the Finance Committee. I was its chairman for a very long period of time. When I found the Board of Selectmen, I found the opportunity, the ability, and the power to use that sense as it relates to working with your state delegations, the governor, and so forth, to getting something to happen for the town of Walpole. This right here, this very subject, the buildings downtown. Matt Zucker said, if we can increase the walkability of the downtown area we can increase the viability of the downtown area. And we have to do it with caution, with malice aforethought in many ways, and that's what I'm going to want to work on, things like that.
Great. Well, I thank you both for coming today.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate
you,
it.
Harry.
Yeah.
I thank you for everything you do for the town. Again, it's all volunteer. You're taking your time out from your family and your friends to try to help Walpole be the best it can be.
Indeed.
So I thank you everyone for viewing today. Don't forget, election is June 3rd, Saturday in Walpole. Please come out. We want to see a great turnout for voting in Walpole, and let's make it the best town we can ever live in. So thank you again. Have a great day. Be well, be safe.